Pure Soul members. Welcome to the month of May. I'm really glad that you guys are here with me today. Our Ask Nikki Zoom is going to be held on Thursday, May 15th at 6 p.m. So I hope I can see you guys there and I hope you'll join. I am also going to open it up to the public this month and allow others to join our monthly discussion. I think it'll be fun. So I hope that others do join. Our 20% off discount for the Pure Soul members is still going, so I hope you can take advantage of that. And I just wanted to take a moment and say thanks for being part of the Pure Soul community. And I really enjoy sharing my time and my spirit with you guys. And I think that we can get started on our premier focus topic for the month. So this month, what I thought I would do, I was praying about this and I thought what I would do is just kind of start at the basics and go over some basic concepts of spirituality and just kind of dive a little bit deeper in that. So our first concept or topic that I wanted to talk about is that you are a soul first and a human second. And I know that that's like something that we say a lot, but really to think about it is a little bit, um, it's hard not to lead with our humanity first. So, what it means to be spirit and not human first is means that you're not trying to be a spiritual being. Most of the time, that's why we come here. We come here to learn how to be human. Being a spirit is it's who we are. So it's our deepest truth in life. And when we get here, we have that deepest truth of life until humanity gets a hold of us and it kind of covers up some of that beauty of our soul. And my my idea for talking about this, about being spiritual first, is so that we can try to remember who we are and remember that our soul existed way before our body did, and that our soul will continue to exist after our body. And the way that it applies to our life is oftentimes we think our worth is determined by our achievements or our titles or our mistakes, and we self define based on what we do here in the world. And we even judge others for what they do here in the world. And that's something that Jesus never did. He never judged somebody because of what they did or who they were. He just loved everybody because he saw everybody for the nature of their soul, not the flawed humanity that we kind of adapt when we get here. And so everything that you go through, whether it's good, whether it's hard, it's happening for the growth of your soul. It's not happening so that it's against you, it's happening for you. And I think our goal is really to figure out, how does our soul grow from different experiences in our life? So when we feel overwhelmed or we feel disconnected or lost, it's usually because we're living with the perspective of the body first instead of the soul first. So if we want to dig a little deeper or dive a little deeper, how do we come out of that perspective and how do we help ourselves grow um, into the idea of living with the soul first? So you can, I don't know, maybe start your day by asking, what does my soul need for today? Because a lot of times I know that I get stuck in this too, that I wake up in the morning and I think, oh my God, what do I need to get done today? How many tasks do I have? Who do I have to see today? Who do I have to talk to today? And my focus in the morning is like, what is my task list for the day? And so I think this would be really cool is that if we take the next month or the month of May, and every day when we wake up, we just ask ourselves a small question. And that question can be, what does my soul need today? And then maybe we can focus on making sure that throughout our day that we do listen to that. So I tested this morning, you guys, and I asked, what does my soul need today? And literally, I just had this vision come to me. It was actually like a memory, but it was a memory of a time when I was small and I had gone to the park with my grandfather, and we were just sitting in the park, listening to the birds, listening to the breeze, looking at the trees, and we just sat there for a long time. And I thought, okay, well, if that's what my soul needs, then I'll go do that. So I did. I came out to my patio and I just sat here and I paid attention and I listened. And oh my God, the birds were incredible. And they were just singing all morning and the wind chimes were going. And I'll tell you, yeah, I really do think that my soul needed that today. And it was a little bit of a shift on the typical question that I ask myself. So I encourage you to try that this month and see if that works for you guys. The other thing you can do is you can practice seeing yourself kind of like others see you. Um, and a lot of times when I say that, I mean like think of the people in your life that love you so unconditionally. What do they love about you? Practice seeing yourself the way others um, benefit from the things that you do for them or the way that you love them, and know that we're a soul and soul is perfect. The imperfection comes from our humanity, but we as souls are beautifully designed. Here's a couple questions too that you can ask yourself, because this is what actually prompted this for me is when was the last time that I truly honored myself as a soul and not as a body? And that's the thing I always tell you guys, and I always kind of preach like, oh, listen to the inner self, ask your inner self, what does she want to do today? But I never, for our humanity and for the purpose of our humanity. But this was, what does my soul need today? So this is a little bit more like honoring our soul, which is a little deeper than honoring our humanity. So, yeah, I encourage you to try that. And then you can also ask yourself, what part of your human experience or what part of my human experience have I been taking too personally instead of viewing it from a spiritual perspective? So I can tell you that in some of what's happening in our government and some of what's happening in our world today, I am viewing that very humanly and how it affects my human experience. And so I tried to look at that from more of a spiritual perspective. And what I came up with is that, well, A, I can't control anything, but B, this is a challenge on my faith. This is a challenge to know that God has my back and that I'm going to be okay no matter what happens. And I think that when I look at the things that make me worried about our government or about our world, I realize that if I keep myself aligned in the truth of my soul, that's where my faith sits. And then that's where I know I'll be okay. So I think that's another good thing to ask yourself is where in my human experience am I stressed out so much about the topic that I'm thinking about from a human perspective, and then try to kind of apply it. Is it creating a challenge for you? Is it reaffirming something for you? And I found this to be helpful for me the last couple days. So I hope it is for you as well. So again, to live your life as a soul and not just a body, don't forget to ask yourself, what does my soul need today? And then take a look at yourself and take a look at the gifts that you give to the world around you and try to view yourself for those beautiful gifts that you are and the beautiful gifts that you give. And then ask yourself, when was the last time I honored myself as a soul, not as a body? And what part of my human experience should I take a look at and try to view more from a spiritual perspective than a human perspective? So I know that this topic, you are a soul first and a human second. Um, I know that's basic and I know that we hear it all the time, but I'm just saying let's take a little bit of a deeper look and um, talk about our soul with ourselves and see how that goes. So the second spiritual concept that I wanted to talk about was about that saying that we hear all the time, the one that says, be still and know that I am God. And that challenged me for a long time in my life because I couldn't really understand that, that the voice of God is found within the stillness. And how often are we really still to even hear the voice of God? And this was a challenge for me. Um, to understand that phrase or that saying. So I think that there's certain things I understood from my reflection on this, and number one, that God doesn't compete with the noise. So if your brain is loud all the time, it's hard for us to hear the voice of God because we got a lot of chaos happening in our brain. And that chaos and that banter in our mind is typically created from a perspective of humanity because God's voice isn't chaotic, it's gentle, it's peaceful. And it comes when we slow down and when we're kind of quiet enough to hear that voice inside of us. And oftentimes, we'll say it's the inner voice, but it's not the inner spiritual voice. It's almost like a peaceful sense of knowing that just becomes you in the stillness. And I challenge you to sit in stillness and see what happens. It's stillness isn't about having any thoughts. It's about creating enough space to recognize something that isn't your thought, right? So you don't have to earn spiritual clarity by working harder, which is something that is a fallacy. God is free. I always say that, God is free and he already exists within us. It's just kind of us uncovering a little bit of humanity to find him. So it's not like we have to work harder. Sometimes we have to work less. We have to think less. We have to just sit and be. And I think that's the challenging part of finding the voice of God within because anxiety comes from moving too fast, um, rushing around and trying to finish everything, finish everything, finish everything. And then divine guidance is like out the window. So, big life decisions, when we're making big life decisions, they're not meant to be made in the chaos of our mind, and think about the times that you do have big life decisions. Hopefully you get the time to sit down, to be still, to really think about it, maybe pray about it. And big life events are always invitations to return to stillness because it's important, right? Life decisions and life event decisions are so important that we do actually sit down and take time and think about them. And what if we were that methodical in our everyday, about our everyday experiences? I think we'd have more quality um, remembrances of our past if we did that. So if we want to try to dive a little bit deeper or dig down a little bit, what if we set like 5 minutes aside every day just to be still, not to pray, not to journal, not to think, not to discern, just simply to be like 5 minutes. Just set your watch for 5 minutes and see if you can just be still with nothing. And I did that this morning when I was out here and I was, listening to nature and I heard all the birds and it was such a beautiful, it was such a beautiful morning to have that experience. So I encourage you to try to sit in the stillness and see what it does for you. Trust that whatever you need in that moment, it will come up. It will come up when you're in that quiet, reflective time of your life. And you can ask yourself, like, where am I letting the noise drown out God's voice in my life? And um, what could He be trying to say to me that I've been too busy to hear? And sometimes it's not even just about hearing God's voice within. Sometimes it's about hearing God's voice when He speaks to you from the outside world. And I encourage you to take a look at the world around you. And sometimes, if a friend says something or a stranger says something and it hits you, maybe that's a message from God. Maybe that is something for you to take a little bit deeper into your heart. So I encourage the stillness. And I think I don't know, try it out, you guys. It does make a difference, and I think it's great if we go a little bit deeper into that concept as well. So the third spiritual concept I wanted to talk about today is healing. And I just want to say that healing is remembering that you are whole. It's not about fixing brokenness. It's about remembering wholeness. So what it means is kind of like true healing isn't about patching yourself up. It's about remembering that deep down you were never truly broken to begin with, because pain, trauma, mistakes, they cover up the wholeness that you are, but they can't erase it. So, any trauma, any mistake, any pain that you've been through in your life, it might put a little bit of a cover on the light that you are, but it can erase it and it can't change who you are at the deepness of your soul. And so, you don't have to try to like strive to be better. You just need to remember who you already are, because your healing journey is sacred and it's not about getting over it. Like a lot of people always say that, like, just get over it. It's not about getting over it. It's about trying to remember who you were and who you were before that trauma kind of covered up your light. And that's the challenge when we heal our emotional trauma or our physical trauma or our analytical trauma. It's just about kind of going back toward that inner child and seeing who we were before that trauma happened. So every time that you show compassion to your past self or to your inner child, you're removing a layer that covered up your light. So if any of you have taken the Alma Pura courses with me, you know that we uncover a lot of the things that kind of dampen who we are in the world and kind of dampens our personality because we become cautious or we become um, apprehensive or anxious. And so remembering the moment of the trauma and how that trauma affected us and our past self, it really kind of sheds kind of sheds light on um, how to get back to that inner child belief or faith. And so, if we want to dive deeper into that concept or dig a little deeper so that we can grow, how do we do that? And I think it's we have to stop the negative self talk, because a lot of times we don't speak to ourselves with tenderness. We might speak to other people with tenderness or with compassion, but we don't do that with ourselves. Like, if you are going to talk to yourself, why don't you take a week where you talk to yourself like you would a little child, and that you explain concepts to yourself like you would a little child? And how much nicer would you be to yourself? So, oftentimes, the pain and the trauma and the things that we experience, it dampens our light, but then we get a hold of it and it becomes part of our human self identification. And then we dampen our light because we have a lot of negative self talk. So this challenge is like speak to yourself nicely so that you don't have to keep beating up that inner child or that past self that already went through the trauma. So make space for the grief. Make space also for the gratitude, because we spend our whole life learning how to be human, and then we spend the rest of our life trying to take humanity off of us so that we can be ready to go home to heaven. And that's what this part of the challenge is about. It's about finding the way that God looks at us. And he looks at us with unconditional love, and he looks at us as his children. So if we treated ourselves in that same type of compassion, we would be able to turn that grief into more of a grateful kind of feeling. And I hope that you take some time to do that. It is a life-changing experience when we're nicer to ourselves. So you can ask yourself, like, what parts of myself have I judged as being broken and that maybe God sees as whole? And how is that possible? How can we see something as broken and have God see that thing as whole? And that's because he sees everything as an opportunity for growth and faith and trust and a lesson and a challenge. And he encourages us through the whole thing. So while we might think we're broken, he thinks we're perfect, and he knows exactly why this experience is in our life. And so maybe that's what we should do. We should ask, like, why is this experience happening in my life? And if God were looking at it, what would he think I should do here? and maybe that will help. Or ask yourself, what would I want my child to do, or somebody that I love unconditionally? Because then you can take that same guidance through unconditional love and apply it to yourself. And if you do that, how would your healing journey change if you stopped trying to fix yourself and just started to try to remember how whole you are and how loved you are? And maybe treating yourself that way um, would change the way you feel about yourself and about the world around you. So, yeah. So those are the three concepts that I really wanted to talk about today. So, hey guys, as I close the video today, I just want to remind you that you're perfect just the way you are, and that we're souls and we are just wrapped up in a human story, and that God's voice meets us not so much in the striving as much as he does in the stillness, and that our healing is not fixing something, it's realizing something. It's realizing that we are whole and perfect already. And as you guys as we end the video today, I just encourage you to listen deeper and trust that your soul already holds every single thing that you need, and that you have trust, and that you have remembrance, and that you know how much you're loved, and that you speak kindly to yourself, because heaven smiles every single time you do that. So I hope that um, you've enjoyed the video. I thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today, and may you walk gently with your soul today, and trust that you really are already everything that heaven dreamed that you would be. So stay blessed, and I'll see you guys at the Zoom.